This message is brought to you by Encounter Christian Network.
Today we are looking at relevance in the marketplace. Relevance in the marketplace. And in our second quarter seminar, we actually looked at getting God's blessings from your work. Getting God's blessings from your work. But today we are going to look at relevance in the marketplace. And I'm actually going to do this in two parts. We actually looked at. So today I'll be doing part 1, and then in our fourth quarter seminar, I'll be looking at part 2 of relevance in the marketplace. So we are talking about those of us working, either we are running our own businesses or we are working in the corporate world. Okay. So today we are looking at becoming relevant. Becoming relevant. And I'd like to start with the definition of trade. Trade is basically exchange of goods and services. But then I'll be using a definition from Merriam-Webster dictionary. How does Merriam-Webster define trade? According to Merriam-Webster, trade is the business of buying and selling or bartering commodities. The business of buying and selling or bartering commodities. More like a barter trade. So trade is actually exchange of goods and services. Exchange of goods and services. So Merriam-Webster says that trade is the business of buying and selling or bartering commodities. One of the things we have to understand is the fact that life is moving fast, and it's our responsibility to move along so we don't lose relevance. Life is moving fast, and it's our responsibility to move along so we don't lose relevance. So what we are actually saying is that it's possible to gain relevance and it's possible to lose relevance concerning the works of our hands. So if I'm running a business, it's possible for that business to gain relevance and it's possible for that business to lose relevance. If I'm working in an office, it's possible for me to gain relevance and it's possible for me to lose relevance. And amazingly, there are ways of gaining relevance and there are ways of losing relevance. Our focus today is on becoming relevant. So that if I'm already relevant, how do I sustain the relevance? And also, if I don't have relevance, how do I gain relevance? One of the things we have to understand is we have to learn to transition through the phases of life so we don't become obsolete in the field we are called to. We have to learn to transition through the phases of life so we don't become obsolete in the field we are called to. So for some people, the reason why they've lost relevance is because they become obsolete. And I will explain what I mean by obsolete. Because in transitioning, one of the things is that we are not necessarily changing the business, but rather we are making adjustments to suit the current need. In transitioning, we are not necessarily changing the business, but rather we are making adjustments to suit the current need. So when I don't adjust, or if I don't adjust, I now become obsolete. Being obsolete means that I used to be relevant. I used to be useful. I'm no longer useful. I'm no longer relevant, but I used to be useful and I used to be relevant. So in transitioning, we are not necessarily changing the business, but rather making adjustments to suit the current need. One of the things that makes many people lose out is the fact that they are not ready to make those necessary adjustments, or sometimes they don't know they must make adjustments. Sometimes too, people don't know how to make adjustments. So it's either I don't know I should make adjustments, I don't know how to make adjustments. And sometimes this is the problem. A person or business can unknowingly be involved in solving needs of yesterday. A person or business can unknowingly be involved in solving needs of yesterday. That's what makes an individual or business obsolete. So I just want to ask you a question, and I want you to ask yourself that question. Am I solving the needs of today or the needs of yesterday? Am I solving today's needs or yesterday's needs? So let's say today you need bread. You need bread today. Yesterday you needed rice, but today you need bread. So if I bring rice to you, I am actually solving yesterday's problem, not knowing that you don't need rice today, you need bread today. So that if I will be relevant in your life today, I must know that person A or person B needs bread today and not rice. So am I solving the current needs in my workspace at the office? Am I solving current needs or past needs? Is my business solving current problems or past or former problems? And in many cases, that is why people don't see advancement. To them, they are meeting needs, and we'll be coming to needs very soon, very shortly. But we must understand that meeting needs is not enough. It's about meeting today and tomorrow's needs, and not yesterday's needs. All right. So we've understood that to be obsolete means that a person or business is actually involved in solving the needs of yesterday. At that company, in that business, in that office, there are needs of today and there are needs of yesterday. If you solve needs of yesterday, you will not be applauded. But if you solve needs of today, and you position that company or that corporation or that business to solve needs of tomorrow, you'll be applauded. You'll be appraised for it. But if you solve needs of yesterday are not relevant today. Also, individuals and businesses that are useful don't get obsolete. So we are introducing another word here, usefulness. To be relevant means to be useful. Individuals and businesses that are useful don't get obsolete. So we are talking now about the individuals and the businesses and the corporations that are actually solving today's needs. In doing so, we are saying that they become useful. And we are using usefulness as a synonym of relevance. So what I must focus on is that I must focus on increasing my usefulness as a person or as a business. And that's what today's discussion is about. It's important to increase your usefulness as a person or as a business. So I want to ask you a question. Have you increased your usefulness in the past 2 weeks? Have you increased your usefulness in the past 4 weeks, the past 1 month? Has your usefulness been increased? Usefulness can either increase or decrease. Usefulness can either increase or decrease. So is your usefulness increasing or decreasing? Usefulness can either increase or decrease. So is my usefulness increasing or decreasing? In answering that question, we are going to look at something I call the key to relevance. The key to relevance. The key to relevance. The key to relevance. And if we get to understand this principle or this concept, we'll realize that no matter where we find ourselves, we will become relevant in that space. There is a key to relevance. And if we discover and apply this principle, no matter the space in which we find ourselves, we'll find ourselves being relevant. So what is the key to relevance? The key to relevance is simply this, and you can write this down. Be a problem solver, and you will be difficult to let go. Be a problem solver, and you will be difficult to let go. So we've been looking at usefulness and relevance, and we are saying that this is the key to relevance. What is the key to relevance? Be a problem solver, and you will be difficult to let go. Be a problem solver. If I'm running a business, my business must be aimed at problem solving. If I'm working in a company, I was employed to come and solve problems. People don't really employ you just because they like you or just because you are nice. People employ you because they want you to come and solve certain problems they have, and they are trusting that your capacity is built to solve that problem or those problems. And that is why your role is defined when you enter a company or a space. You are the MD, you are the assistant this. They are defining your role because when your role is defined, your responsibilities are defined. When your responsibilities are defined, they are actually defining the kind of problems you've been brought in to solve. That is what makes us relevant, and that is what keeps us relevant. Being a problem solver. So I said that the key to relevance is be a problem solver, and you'll be difficult to let go. I don't think if you are solving the major problems of that company, they will easily let you go. No, not at all. Why? Because that company or that corporation is involved in making profit. If you are bringing in 80% of the profit, they'll do everything possible to keep you. Because you've increased your usefulness, you've increased your relevance. How? By being a problem solver. So every business is actually looking for people to solve problems. And that is why if you go for an interview, you realize that at the interview, the focus is on what are you bringing to the table? What problem are you actually coming to solve in that place? And amazingly, there are times you will have people actually playing similar roles in a company, and yet they are being paid differently. And you'll be wondering, why so? It's simple. Because one person probably has been able to prove why he's going to solve more problems. So you have similar people occupying, different people occupying similar roles, and then they are being paid differently. One person was able to prove to the panel that I'm going to solve many major problems in this company. And many times that is what is responsible for promotions in the workplace. Key to relevance: be a problem solver, and you'll be difficult to let go. So I want us at this point to actually break down what I just said. That is the main focus of today's discussion. Be a problem solver, and you'll be difficult to let go. Let's break this down. The first thing I would like to say in breaking this down is that being a problem solver comes with identification of opportunities. The people who are able to solve problems are the people who are able to identify opportunities. We are going to use the story of Joseph to explain what I'm saying, and then we'll now come and look at a particular equation and something I call the relevance cycle. So let's at this point go into the Bible and look at something. We're going to look at Genesis 49, Genesis 41, Genesis 41. I'll read verse 49. Then I'll read verse 55 to 57. Then I'll read chapter 42, verse 6. So these are the three portions I'm going to read. First, I'm taking Genesis 41, 49. We are still on the key to relevance, that you must be a problem solver and you'll be difficult to let go. And we are seeing that it comes with identification of opportunity. So Genesis 41, 49. The Bible says that, and Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. So Joseph gathered so much corn as the sand of the sea that the Bible says it was so much that he left numbering. You could not number. You could not tell how much corn he had gathered. 55 to 57. The Bible says that, and when all the land of Egypt was famished, when famine came, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. That's something key I want us to take note of. Go unto Joseph. Understand that Pharaoh was actually in charge of the land, but then he had made Joseph the governor over the land of Egypt. And he specifically told Joseph that, I am the only person going to be higher than you. If you put me aside and my throne aside, you are the greatest and highest person in terms of hierarchy in the land of Egypt. So that we can see that Joseph was relevant and useful in his time. We want to look at certain things about Joseph. So the people are now famished, they are hungry, they come to Pharaoh. So picture yourself being Joseph and Pharaoh being your CEO, or let's say your company owner, the MD of that company you work for. They came and he cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. Why will Pharaoh direct or redirect the people to Joseph? Because of the key to relevance we are discussing. We said the key to relevance is be a problem solver and you'll be difficult to let go. At that time, Joseph had solved a major problem. So he said, go unto Joseph, what he said to you do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. Understand this. The famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn. So the Bible says that all countries, they came to Egypt. And when they came to Egypt, it's not Egypt they were coming for, it's Joseph they were coming for. So that Joseph had so positioned himself to become a problem solver, to the point where countries came to Egypt because of Joseph. Because when you come to Egypt, there is one man you go to. You don't go to Pharaoh, you go to Joseph. Why? Because Joseph had entered a certain level of usefulness and relevance. Do you know why? He had solved a problem. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. The final portion, Genesis 42 verse 6. The Bible says, and Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Imagine how relevant Joseph had become, simply because he had solved the problem. So we understand from these readings that Joseph became a global businessman by seeing a need ahead of time. So now we are going to focus on needs, because we said that the key to relevance is be a problem solver and you'll be difficult to let go. In solving problems, you must identify a need. And that is what actually made Joseph different and significant. And if we must become significant in our place of work and with our businesses, we must understand this principle of seeing a need ahead of time. And anyone who catches the principle of seeing a need ahead of time, you'll be amazed the things you'll be able to enter into before actual problems develop or arise. So we see that Joseph became a global businessman by seeing a need ahead of time. It's easy to identify opportunities when we become empathetic to the needs of humanity. I'll take that again. It's easy to identify opportunities when we become empathetic to the needs of humanity. So what are we saying? Let's conclude on Joseph and then we continue with relevance. There was a problem. Pharaoh had two dreams. He couldn't interpret the dreams. He couldn't understand. The wise men could not understand. Joseph came forward. By the gift of God he had, relevance was at play. Usefulness was at play. He was able to solve a problem nobody could solve. What was the problem? Pharaoh had two dreams. He didn't understand the dreams, but he knew the dreams were relevant. Joseph comes, he interprets the dreams. He doesn't leave it there. He now gives a solution. In our fourth quarter, I will stress on this statement I just made. For some people, they would have just interpreted the dreams to Pharaoh and they would have just walked back to the prison. What made Joseph different was that after he interpreted the dreams, he gave Pharaoh a word of wisdom. He told him what to do. So sometimes at your workplace, you may be given the opportunity to interpret a problem. All Joseph did the first time was to interpret the dreams. The dreams were problems coming. There's going to be 7 years of abundance of plenty. And after that, there's going to be 7 years of famine. Someone would have just interpreted the two dreams and left it there. And for some of us at our workplaces, we've had such opportunities. We were called to the office of the boss and we were made to interpret problems, and we left it there and we went back. But amazingly, your promotion was in not just interpreting the problem, but after interpreting the problem, you should have told the person this is what to do. That is what made Joseph different. He first tells the meaning of the dreams. Oh, this is the meaning, Pharaoh. There's going to be 7. These are the two dreams you had. It's the same dream. God has repeated the dream to you. So you've had one dream twice. Just for emphasis, to buttress a point that God is about to do something upon the earth and upon the land. These are the dreams. And as wise as Joseph was, he didn't leave it there. He said, Pharaoh, now with the dreams that I've interpreted, I have made you know the problem coming. But let me not keep it there. Please, can I suggest you what to do? Get a wise man to do A, B, C, D, E. So at this point, let me take you to the suggestion that Joseph gave after he interpreted the dreams. So Genesis chapter 41. Let's go to verse. Let me start from verse 32. Genesis 41 from verse 32. Genesis 41 from verse 32. So amazingly, Joseph is teaching us a certain principle. And like I'm saying, I want to touch on it a little. And I'll stress on this principle in our fourth quarter, because I'll be continuing with relevance in the marketplace. But let me just touch on it briefly. Genesis 41:32. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh. So at this point, Joseph has now switched from interpreting the problem to giving a solution. And like I said, at your office, when you are called to the office, don't just interpret the problem. After interpreting the problem, give the solution to the MD, give the solution to the CEO. So that's what Joseph is doing in verse 33. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. So Joseph is saying that, Pharaoh, do you know something? With this problem we have, can you employ another manager? Open another department of this company, of this corporation. Employ a manager to handle ABC. If not, trouble will come. So this department needs to be created to solve this problem that we've discovered. That's what Joseph was literally doing. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land. What is Joseph doing in verse 34? He is still telling Pharaoh, this is what to do. So it's like talking to your boss and saying, do you know something, sir? After creating that department and employing that person, someone who can manage this aspect, there should be subdivisions under that person. So he says, let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. He's actually giving Pharaoh the master plan. That is the solution. What is he doing? He's being a problem solver. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. Verse 37, observe something. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Let's end on verse 40. Okay, like I said, I'll touch on this in our 4th quarter, in our next seminar. Okay, so Joseph is now giving wisdom to Pharaoh. You are now talking to the CEO. Let's do A, B, C. The CEO is just standing there looking. The CEO is just saying, wow, this is wisdom. It's true. And you see, when God's wisdom is manifested in you, when you talk, people know that this is wisdom. He did not know the answer before, but whilst you are talking, he knows that, what you are saying is true. Josephine, what you are saying is true. Joseph, what you are saying is true. Then now, the boss looks and says, do you know something? All these things you've told me to do, all this wisdom and this counsel you've given me, I am not going to look for anybody to employ. I'm going to create that department, and you are going to be head over that department. All these solutions and this plan you've drawn on the table, implement it. Since you already know what to do, why should I now employ someone else, pay the person, and then ask you to tell the person what to do? Since you know what to do, do it. That's amazing. That's amazing. And we'll mention something when we come to 3 requirements for trade. I'll be coming there shortly. So from Joseph's story, we have seen that by being a problem solver, he gained relevance. He cheaply had that office just because he solved the problem. And one of the major things I'm trusting God that we will leave this meeting with today is the fact that when we are called to the office to interpret a problem, I'm trusting God that there will be the wisdom that in addition to interpreting the problem, you will also give the solution. Let's continue. So, we are looking at relevance. Let me show us a certain, should I call it a formula? The first thing is to be empathetic. I mentioned earlier that being a problem solver comes with identification of opportunities. And then I also mentioned that it's easy to identify opportunities when we become empathetic to the needs of humanity. Many people are not empathetic to the needs of humanity, so they are not able to identify opportunities. In that office, do you have empathy? Is the love of God manifesting in you so much? Or maybe in your mind, the company is not for my father, it's not for my mother, I just came to work here, so whatever happens should happen. I get my salary at the end of the month, so I'm good to go. No, that is not the way of a Christian. That is not the way of a Christian. Empathy is important, and empathy is a manifestation of love. When there is empathy, you see, so to gain relevance, you need to go through this. One, there must be empathy. When you are empathetic about a system, the next thing that you enter is seeing of needs. So let me give an example. Let's say you are in a particular area, a particular vicinity, and then occasionally you meet friends who say, oh, they are going to town to get some stuff. They are going to town to get some stuff. You are going to town to get some stuff. And you become empathetic. Why do people have to travel all the way to town to get certain basic things? Because of that empathy, you will now identify a need. Oh, I see. There is a need for a provision shop in this vicinity. You must journey 3 kilometers away to get a provision shop. You must journey 4 kilometers away to get a provision shop. You must journey 5 kilometers away to get a provision shop. You have now entered a need because of empathy. Do you understand? Or there are certain things that are needed, basic needs. When you look around your vicinity, people have to travel all the way to town to get those things. Empathy has now sponsored the opening of your eyes to see a need. When you enter into seeing needs, you are now identifying opportunities. And that is what makes you a relevant person. So from empathy to needs to opportunities, you need to first have empathy. Want to help people. When you genuinely in your heart as a Christian want to help people, God will let you see the help that people need, and it will be an avenue for opportunities for you. And that is how we enter into relevance. So if you are writing, all you do is you write empathy and you draw a straight arrow to needs and you draw another straight arrow to opportunities. Empathy to needs to opportunities. How do you see opportunities? You see opportunities when you identify needs. How do you identify needs? You must start by being empathetic. So for some people, because of empathy, they were able to see needs. You see that Joseph was someone who was empathetic. Before Pharaoh, we don't really have an opportunity to see that empathy displayed. But then when he was in the prison with the prisoners, the Bible says one day he woke up and the prisoners did not look okay. He was worried. Are you guys fine? What's happening? What's going on? And then they said, oh, we had dreams. Joseph was a prisoner. He was their co-prisoner. But even in that state, he still had empathy. He saw people looking sad. He was concerned. Oh, what is troubling you? Are you fine? Is everything fine? You don't look okay. Yesterday you looked okay, but today you look a bit moody. Is everything fine? Because if Joseph had not manifested that empathy, he wouldn't have known that the baker and the cupbearer had dreams. Not knowing their dreams, he wouldn't have interpreted their dreams for the dreams to come to pass. For that same cupbearer to mention his name to Pharaoh. So you see that everything began from the manifestation of empathy in the prison. So even though in the portion where we read, we don't see empathy being manifested before Pharaoh. Empathy was manifested before the baker and the cupbearer. And it was the cupbearer who was restored, who mentioned to Pharaoh that there is someone who can interpret dreams. So you see, Joseph's relevance came from empathy to needs and then to opportunities. Because the opportunity he was given to be brought before Pharaoh was because he met a need in the prison. How did he meet the need in the prison? Because he was an empathetic person. And that's how Joseph gained relevance. And to gain relevance, that is the equation. I'll repeat. The key to relevance is be a problem solver. And you'll be difficult to let go. And we said relevance is what? Empathy first leads to seeing of needs. And then opportunities. So we can say that when empathy is in place, we are able to forecast and see needs ahead of time before they become obvious and apparent. Let me take that again. When empathy is in place, we are able to forecast and see needs ahead of time before they become obvious and apparent. So I give an example. You live in a vicinity. People have to travel, let's say, 3, 4, 5 kilometers to get, let's say, a provision shop. For example, I know in Ghana, there are provision shops almost everywhere. But you just imagine a scenario where you are in a particular vicinity or you are in a new area and people have to travel that far to buy milk, to buy sugar, basic things like milk and sugar and bread. And you have concern. Oh, so what about those who don't use cars? How are they going to buy bread if they want to buy bread every day? Are they going to walk all the way? They are going to pick a taxi or order an Uber just to go and buy bread, just to go and buy sugar. That's empathy. Now you see a need. You now see opportunities. So it now helps you to forecast ahead of time. That's why sometimes you see people who have been able to forecast. They have identified needs. They've identified opportunities. And through that, they've established businesses. And other people now start copying. So there are times you see someone open a particular shop in a particular area. Then now every street now has that particular kind of shop. But one person saw ahead. Later in our discussion, we'll talk about how to stay relevant, because for some people, they were the first people to bring that provision shop into that vicinity. But now their businesses are down. The most recent shops that were opened are doing better than them. There's a way to sustain relevance, but we'll talk about that later in a later time. So you must forecast to see the need ahead of time. You are in a place you're like, oh, I think there are many women who live around. Are there hairdressing salons around? Oh, someone has to travel so far to a hairdressing salon. And then you come to realize that the people in the vicinity are not too particular about their hair. When I say particular, what I mean is some people will go to a particular hairdressing salon, which is very expensive. Some will go to a particular barbering salon. But there are some others, they don't mind. Once it's a barbering salon and they can cut my hair neatly, I don't mind. I can go anywhere. So probably in that vicinity, people don't mind going anywhere. The only thing is that the anywhere is not there. The closest place is so far. Is there a hairdressing salon around? Is there a barbering salon around? What you are doing is because of empathy. Maybe you saw someone who said was bushy. You see like 5 people, their hairs are bushy. You're like, oh, why haven't you cut your hair? And they say, oh, do you know something? The barbering salon is so far. So when I go to church, after church, I'll just pass through a barbering salon close to church. Because of your empathy, you've seen a need. Opportunities are getting close. And like I said, when empathy is in place, we are able to forecast and see needs ahead of time before they become obvious and apparent. So for empathetic people, they are able to forecast. So by the time empathy makes you see a need, the rest of the people have not seen that need. By the time empathy makes you see a need, the rest of the people have actually not seen that need. That is forecasting. So are you able to see a need before other people see a need? Many times those are the people who take the lead in business or in that company. They saw the need 4 months before every other person saw it. They saw that need 6 months before every other person saw it. And I said, what sponsors that? That is empathy. We also ought to understand that because no system is perfect yet, in every work environment, there are problems. Because no system is yet perfect, in every work environment, there are problems. So in that your work environment, there are actually problems. You may not be seeing them, but there are many problems because it's not a perfect system. I spoke about adjustments, that as life is transition, there need to be adjustments, consistent adjustments. I'm going to put these problems under 2 classes, major problems and minor problems. Okay? Major problems and minor problems. Major problems are problems that when solved, bring an increase in productivity. Major problems are problems that when solved, bring an increase in productivity. I put down a few examples of major problems. Let me just go through them briefly. For instance, a major problem can be identifying a challenge with the parking space of your company. That's a major problem. Identifying a problem with the parking space. Why? Because there is something called sociological strangulation. If I'm driving to a bank, for instance, and then I go and I struggle to park, the next time is likely I'll prefer not to go to that bank. I'll go to another branch. If I have to drive and struggle to park, if the parking space seems too tight, sociological strangulation takes place. It talks about the fact that when a place is 80% full, the place seems to feel so tight. So let's say you mention it to your boss, parking, can we do something about the parking? That's a major problem because you're identifying a challenge that actually can bring an increase in productivity. Many people may not be coming to do business with you people because when they come, they struggle to park. So they'll prefer to go to another shop that has a bigger parking space. What's another major problem? Identifying a challenge with customer service of the company. You identify that the way people are treated, it can affect the clientele. It can make people not want to come back to this company. Identifying a challenge with handling of staff. You can actually mention to your boss that, oh, it seems a number of people are having challenges with ABC, so they are not giving their best. Because it is said that productivity increases when the staff are happy. It increases, I think, by 12% and it reduces by 10% by certain research. I think it's 12% increase, 10% reduction if the staff are happy or if they are not happy. Also, what's the major problem? Identifying a challenge with queues in the banking hall of a bank. So in some banking halls now, I don't know if it's for all of them, you don't need to go and form a queue. You pick a ticket and you sit down. When your ticket number is called, you go. But previously in some banking halls, you stand for long in a queue. Or you'll be seated and then you have to be shifting. When somebody gets up to go to the teller, you shift. So if a staff identifies that problem and suggests to the boss, do you know, sir, can we actually get that machine to that ticketing system? Can we use that ticketing system? You just go in, if you are doing a deposit or withdrawal, you go to the machine, you get your ticket, you sit down. When your number is called, you just walk to the teller. Maybe ticket number 343, go to teller number 4. That you've solved a major problem. That's relevance. So those are major problems. And then there are minor problems. Because of time, I will not go over the minor problems. I have a few minutes to end. It therefore implies that in every work environment, there are opportunities to solve problems. So in that office, there are opportunities to solve problems. In that space where your business is located, there are opportunities to solve problems. It means you have a great opportunity to be relevant and useful. And when you gain relevance, you'll be amazed at the inflows you'll be experiencing. I remember in June when we had a second quarter seminar, I quoted this after scoping her. He said that talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. So talented people are people who everyone is seeing a target. They're able to hit it. Others are missing it. A genius hits a target that nobody saw. And that comes with forecasting. When you are relevant, you see a problem no one is seeing and you have solved it. And that's what Joseph did. He solved the problem ahead of time. So at the time he was gathering the corn, I'm sure people felt this guy is not okay. Corn, look at so much corn in the land. There is so much abundance. Look, we throw seeds on the ground and they are just growing and he's just gathering. He's just wasting his time. That is talent versus genius. He hit a target no one was seeing. When the famine came, it now dawned on them that Joseph is a wise man. Joseph is a wise man. All right, I have 5 minutes. Let me quickly go through these. I'll touch on these next in our next seminar. 3 requirements for trade: desire, skills, opportunities. 1, desire. 2, skills. 3, opportunities. 3 requirements for trade. I'll expatiate in our next seminar. 3 requirements for trade: 1, desire. 2, skills. 3, opportunities. And then let me end briefly with what I call the relevance cycle. I will also touch on it in our next seminar. The relevance cycle. 1, know what is needed. 1, know what is needed. 2, get what is needed. 2, get what is needed. And then 3, give what is needed. Give what is needed. 1, know what is needed. You must analyze the market. 2, get what is needed. That means to gain tradable skills. And then 3, give what is needed. Test the skill on the market and be focused on meeting needs and not just making money. People will pay you for meeting their needs. Only few people buy what they don't need, and everyone has needs. Never forget that statement. Only few people buy what they don't need, and everyone has needs. If everyone has needs, it means there are a lot of opportunities around us every day. A lot of opportunities to answer the needs in people's lives. And like I said, people will pay you for meeting their needs. People will pay you for meeting their needs. Abraham Lincoln once said that I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. So, I would like to end here. But our major focus has been on the key to relevance. Be a problem solver and you'll be difficult to let go. And then we said with relevance, there must be empathy, needs, and opportunities. So that we must learn to identify major problems. We must learn to forecast, and it begins with empathy. So, I just want to admonish you. Start enjoying the work you are doing. You may not love what you are doing. Or let me put it this way. You may not be doing what you love, but learn to love what you are doing now. Because there are many opportunities there. If you don't love it, you will not see the opportunities because you will not see the needs. Because needs are generated when there is empathy. When there is empathy, now you're able to see needs. When you see needs, you now have access to opportunities. You can now help people. And then you become like Joseph. You become like Joseph, where even in a foreign land, he became that exceptional. And all he did was simple. Based on these simple things I've shared with us today, he was empathetic to the prisoners, saw a need, met the needs because he saw opportunities, and he became relevant in his generation. His usefulness was increased. So I'm trusting that with empathy being in place, we are going to be able to forecast and see needs around. Needs around that probably there is a business idea that God will birth out of you to solve that need or meet that need. Or in that company you are working in that workspace, that as you are empathetic enough, God will open your eyes to see needs. And because of that, you start seeing opportunities and bringing things on the table. And don't forget what I said. I said I'll stress on it in our next seminar. When Joseph interpreted the problem, he gave a solution to Pharaoh. That is what made Pharaoh appoint him. If not, he may have been asked to go back to the prison. So the next time you are called after interpreting the problem, let the wisdom of God guide you. Especially if you've been learn to build yourself. We'll talk about skills. Like I said, I didn't have time. I'll do that in our next quarter seminar. I spoke about desire, skills, and opportunities as 3 requirements for trade. How to gain tradable skills, reading wide, learning a lot about what you are doing, about the field you are in, so that when you are called to interpret a problem, you have the wisdom to tell your boss what to do, and that will lead to open doors. The Lord bless you. Father, we thank and bless you for today. Thank you for teaching us on how to be relevant in our fields, in the marketplace, oh God, and in what we are involved in, what you've called us for. We are grateful for grace that has been released. Thank you that as your love works in us and wisdom works in us, we are going to identify and see opportunities, and through that we are going to bring glory to your kingdom. God bless you so much, Encounter Marketplace. Thank you for joining. I'll continue in our next seminar. Let's do well to apply these things we've taught, put them into practice right when the session is over. The Lord bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you for listening.